like to start it with a little Matthew McConaughey. All right, my name is Brent Hutto, not Matthew McConaughey. He has much more beautiful hair than I do, although I am from the South, which means I'm equally as cool as him because he's from Texas, right? So thank you for being here. We appreciate it. I work for truckstop.com. I'm the chief fun guy. I have a different title, but I think of myself as the chief fun guy because I get to be out in the marketplace and I get to talk to my favorite part of the marketplace, which is the owner-operator part of the marketplace. Although, I should say industry, I guess. Maybe that's a better way to say it. But I get to talk to everybody out there. So I get to talk to owner-operators and medium and large fleet guys. And I get to talk to the brokerage industry. And I even get to go out into the supply chain world and talk about what's going on that affects you guys, because all of supply chain is dependent on trucks getting something somewhere on time and in good shape. So you guys are the heart and soul of America, and you're the heart and soul of what goes on in our country. And so we at Truck Stop, and certainly with my guest up here with ATBS, we feel the same way about this, about the importance of the owner-operator to the health of the trucking industry. You know, there's been a lot said about the owner-operator, about them going away. And by the way, I worked for Overdrive magazine for a while, and every decade there's all this talks about the owner-operators going away. You guys are just as strong today as you've always, as ever, which is really cool. Our point about talking today is what is the information you need to look at to drive a richer life? You know, richer is you can measure it in a lot of different ways, and so we'll talk a little bit about that. Richer is not just more money. Maybe it's more time off. Maybe it's building the business in the way you want to organize things. So that's what we're about at truckstop.com, and Todd's about at ATBS. But if you'll go to the next slide, Mr. Curtis. I'll have to he advances the slides in the back. Look, it all started for me here in 1998, out on the show floor when I got into the industry. So the gray magazine on the left is the very first issue of Overdrive magazine. So that's where I worked for 15 years, from 98 to 2013, and had a wonderful time there, and really getting to know owner-operators and getting to know this industry, and loved it. So Overdrive's been around for 60 years, which is really cool. The voice of the American trucker is really funny. So I was the guy that was always dealing with owner-operators because of the picture on the right, the Partners in Business, which is what the audience just sat through before. I was part of the team that actually brought that very first rendition in this room to the marketplace. It was packed. It was so much fun. But the idea that this marketplace has longevity, you know, and being a part of it is super important. So I come from that background. So I've worked for two really iconic brands. I've worked for Overdrive, and now I work for truckstop.com, and both of them affect the owner-operator because the owner-operators are truckstop.com's main customer. We do business with 70,000 owner-operator fleets. Every 1 truck to 9 truck. We have very few that are outside of that. So that's why we're committed to education inside of every trade show, wherever we go. It doesn't matter where we're at. We're always committed to education and talking about the marketplace. So I'm going to talk a lot about the marketplace from a data standpoint. And then joining me today, if you'll go to the next slide, is one of my best friends in the entire industry, is the president of ATBS, Mr. Todd Amen. Who has taught me a lot about this industry. Come on up, Todd. I would clap.
Thanks,
give
Brett.
A second, just talk about your history with the market.
Just a high five. We haven't been on stage together in a while. We used to do a lot when Brent started the PIB deal. We used to talk a lot, but it's been a while, so it's like old times. The band's back together, yeah. And now ATBS, just real brief, if you don't know us, we work with about 20,000 owner-operators, and we've been doing it 24 years. We do books and taxes, which gives us a glimpse into kind of the inner workings and life of your business and how you operate. And so we try and use that data to consult with our clients to be more successful in their business. And we'll talk a lot more about that as we kind of get into the nuts and bolts. So thanks for having me here, Brent. It's great to be up here with you, man.
It is an honor. Some of us have more hair as the band got back together than before. So he's looking good. There's 2 parts to this. I'm going to cover the data, some things that you can look at every single week over week in the marketplace to know where the marketplace is going. And what I mean is like where rates are going, where freight is going, the most important part of generating revenue, right? So I'm going to talk to you about that because Truckstop sees it every single time. And then Todd's going to talk about what are some of the wisdom things that you need to look at to run your business the best way. So what are some of the areas or potholes you don't want to step into that some of them actually step into? So let me go to the next slide, if you don't mind, Curtis. All right, so our mission is transparency of information. What do I mean by that? We mean that Truckstop in 1995 opened up the marketplace to all owner-operators and truck fleets in the market that want to join our service for all of the information that was already resident on the broker side. It was all right, the brokers already had all this information. We made it resonant to you guys because we believe in the transparency of information because that creates relationships that are trustful. So now the carriers have access to these really, really broad and wide load boards. We're one of them. We're one of the leading ones. We have one competitor in the marketplace, and they do a great job. But the idea is transparency of information so you can empower and enable yourself to run your business. All right? We have no desire to control any part of what you do. We just want to give you access to it as broad and wide, as easy as possible, and cost-effective as possible to be able to run your business. So transparency information is super important, especially in today's world. If you're not transparent with information, you're really not trusted as much. So that's super important when you think about truckstop.com and you think about ATBS. It's really important. But this is truckstop.com's mission as a company. Next slide, Mr. Curtis. All right, so what does Chuck Heston have to do with data? Well, even this guy knows you need to make sure you have control of your data. Now, come on, that's pretty funny. That's Chuck Heston holding the 10 Commandments, right? All right, so go to the next slide. My point about this is know thy data. All right? Know your data. I know it doesn't, look, I'm not a truck driver. I'm not an owner-operator. I understand. Your desire is to drive that truck as much as possible or make as much profit and drive as little as possible. But the point is you love driving the truck. But knowing the data makes it a whole lot more fun to drive the truck because you know that every mile is profitable. Or you know where to navigate to, where to find things, how to do things. It makes it a whole lot easier. You want more time to bass fish. You want more time to go to your kids' sport games. You want more time to go on dates with your spouse or your significant other. Know your data. All right? I'm not a data guy. I'm a math guy, but I'm not a data guy. But as I look at the data on truckstop.com, I can tell you when the market's going to change, and I'm going to show you some data at the end, right at the end of my presentation, on how things are changing, so you can prepare your business. That's all we want to do is help you prepare your business. Mr. Curtis, thanks for one slide. All right, the marketplace is changing. All right, it is changing. I had a friend of mine used to say nobody likes change except a what? A wet baby, right? So nobody likes change, and I get it. All right, that was Mike Riley, guy I used to work for at Randall Riley, who owned Overdrive. But there's so many things changing. There have been pressure points in the market or capacity pressure in the market 4 times in the last 18 years. That's not too bad of a cycle. But when you look at the red line, it says there's been 3 in the last 6. That drives shippers that move freight absolutely nuts because they can't budget for it. It's good for you. It's good for brokers. But it's not great for the overall marketplace because they can't budget for it. It's good for you for a season, and I am so glad carriers and owner-operators are making their just due in the marketplace. Very happy about that. All right? You deserve every penny that you can get in the market. But when we've got these crazy changes in the market, it's challenging on the overall system, and it creates part of what it creates, it's a reflection of what's going on now when it relates to inflation. All right, so I've got 4 different points up there. You've got 2003, 5, by the way, jump in on any of these you want to, Todd.
Man, he got it nailed.
He's got great analysis on this. You got 4 of them, 3 and 5, 14, 17, and 20. What do they all have in common? Government involvement. Someone said, what do you mean government involvement? That was because of this, and this is all government involvement. Even the last one, people say the pandemic, that was the virus. Nope. It was how we reacted to the virus. It was how our government asked us to react to the virus. It changed all these things. You want to know why there's double the amount? I'll show you this on a slide in the spot market. Double the amount of freight than normal. Consumer purchasing of goods has gone up by 40%. Every good hits a truck for the most part. That's why there's so much freight in the marketplace. That's why prices are so high right now. When we went into quarantine, prices dropped to $1.50, and there were only about 200,000 loads on truck stops board in any 24-hour period. So how the government looks at things affects your lives, not just in ELDs. I mean every part of it. All right, go to the next slide. All right, how you doing back there? All right, so this is what I mean. When I said that the marketplace has 100% more than normal. On any given day, before 2020, truckstop.com would have had about 400,000 loads on our load board, any 24-hour period. About 400,000. That's a lot of freight. All right? That's a lot of freight. That's where the red lines are. That's the normal market. This is the last 18 months. Notice those lines are way above. That shows you that that's how we got to this pricing in the market. Last week, I think it was $3.11 average for all the freight on truck stop. There's different segments that you can get a whole lot more than that. That's the average. And no one Well, some people want to be average, but not everybody wants to be average. We always want to perform above average. But this just gives you a visual on how something changes and how a market reacts. A lot of this freight that's coming in the spot market is contract freight that can't get moved at the prices it was negotiated at, and the shipper is trying to move it somewhere else, and it's all coming to the spot market, which has been a great boom for you guys. All right, next slide. Here's an encouraging thing. This is why it's an exciting time to be an owner-operator. When I got into the market, when I started working for truckstop.com, we were here. 15% of all the freight in the market was on a load board or in the spot market. Spot market's a big market. There's lots of different types of freight in the spot market. This is today. When you have a growing opportunity for the things that generate revenue for you, you have a growing opportunity to grow your business or sustain your business. So it's not going away. There's going to be more and more freight. It's predicted to go to that top number, 44% over a projected period of time. That's an encouraging thing to you. It should be very encouraging to you if you're running a 1 truck, 5 truck, 7 truck, 9 truck, however many truck operation. It should be encouraging to you to know that the freight, the fuel that's coming into your marketplace is going to get more. So knowing your data, knowing where to look, knowing lanes to run, knowing things that are profitable is only going to benefit you. You always want, in any marketplace, I had to learn this the hard way. I started a little screen printing, t-shirt screen printing company back in 1991 when I was 22 years old. Didn't understand the marketplace. It had been what is called commoditized. So you weren't ever going to make any money unless you were super big. All right? This is an expanding marketplace. You want to be in an expanding marketplace for your business no matter what. You want to know why the brokerage industry bloomed? Because the spot market has grown by 10% for 20 straight years. Every year, year over year. That's an incredible number. So be encouraged by this, that there's going to be more freight in the market. Next slide, sir. All right. This is important because we covered this yesterday. I just want to cover this because I think this is super important. When you're negotiating with a broker, this is the special sauce that the broker I had on stage talked about yesterday. He said, when you're talking to the broker, you need to know where they got the freight from. Because most of the time you just think it's all the same, right? But it's not. It could be contract freight, which is very tightly bound by pricing. Super tightly bound. Hard for them to negotiate because they've already negotiated a very tight price with somebody. It could be, and so that's hard for them to negotiate on. So ask them what type of freight. Is it contract freight? Second type of freight, spot market freight. The prices vary. All right, easy to negotiate on it. The last one is relationship freight. That's freight that they get from one manufacturer, shipper, and that they have the ability to be flexible on that too. If you'll ask those questions, hey, how'd you get the freight? Is it contract freight? Is it true spot market freight? Or is this really just kind of relationship freight that you kind of control for that one manufacturer? If you'll ask that question, you'll get better rates. Promise you. That is it's from a broker, not from me. All right? So I want to give you guys that one. It's from Mercer Transportation. He was on here yesterday. Mr. Curtis, next slide. All right. I want to talk a little bit about the data. Our market demand, so the amount of freight as compared to the amount of trucks in the marketplace, the balance is normally 30. About 30. It's been over 30. Right now it's 149. Anything over 30 favors the carrier. It's been 149. It's been up to 240 over the pandemic. This means it favors you. Watching that one number and then two other ones I'll show you will help you know every single week over week. And we give this data to you free whether you're a customer or not. All right, so from truckstop.com. So know your data. Next slide. That's called the Market Demand Index. We've put it out for 18 years. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I got to just say one thing. I started looking at that number before Brent ever worked for truckstop.com. Mm-hmm. It comes out every Monday, and for me, if you invest in the stock market and you watch Dow Jones, you watch NASDAQ, that number tells me what's going on in trucking, when it's going up, when it's sideways, when it goes down. Every single week, you know where the market's moving, if it's in your favor, if it's not. It's literally become my Bible for 14 years. Every Monday, it's the first thing I look at to judge what's going on in trucking. And like Brent said, you don't have to be a DAT customer. You can get this email to you if you sign up for their thing. Right. It's incredibly important.
Right, correct, absolutely. So the MDI is a reflection of how much freight is in the market and how many trucks are posted empty in the market. So it's an aggregate top-line number, but we've been trending it for so long, it's one of the bases for the industry. So it's been above 90 for the last 76 weeks, as you see on this one. The second thing I want you to look at is rates. So rates follow load posting volumes. All right, when load posting volumes are up, rates will trail them. In other words, if it's going up, they're going up. If it's coming down, they're going down. You got your head shaking. You see that? You've seen that before, right? All right. So those are the two things that you look at on the MDI. Well, the MDI is for demand in the marketplace, or pressure in the marketplace, and then rates. Always look at the rates because they're another indicator. The third thing I want you to look at is something called the outbound tender reject index, the OTRI. It's not put out by Truck Stop, but it's put out by our good friends at FreightWaves. It is a very important piece of data for you to look at. If you'll go to the next slide, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Normally, this is a contract freight measurement. Normally, in the contract freight market, about 5% of all the freight is rejected. And it's not rejected, it's renegotiated. Right? So that's what does that the price is not good, so it's renegotiated by the contract carrier, the large carrier in the market, with the shipper in the market. It has been tracking along the same as the spot market for the same 20 months that we've had this pressure, this peak in the marketplace. Exactly, it's almost the same. It has been 4x to 5x over its normal. Normally it's 5%, it's been 20 to 28% the whole time. You want to know why the spot market's full? A lot of the freight that can't get renegotiated goes into the spot market because the shipper, in the end, it's more important. This is another little inside information for any carrier. If you're a small carrier, you may not know this. The shipper, it's more important for the goods to get there than it is for them to haggle on price. I heard this directly from shippers. I've heard it from many, many shippers because the transportation is a small amount of the cost of manufacturing the good. They have to, if the goods don't get to market, the goods don't sell. If the goods don't sell, the transportation department gets fired. So it's very important for the goods to get to market. So watch this, watch the MDI, which gives you the market pressure and the rates in the marketplace. And we do this thing for a thing called Spot Market Insights. And then look at the on FreightWaves. You can see it, they posted out there, the outbound tender reject index, because you can watch it and you'll know whether or not the freight in the marketplace. And this is what's cool about this. Since January, this has dropped over 20%, which is a precursor to what I'm going to talk about next, where are rates going. All right, so you can watch that. Watch the market demand, the rates in the truck stock, because that follows the market demand, and then watch the outbound tender reject index because you see what contract freight is doing. The top chart is a spot market reflection. The bottom chart is a contract market. That total marketplace for truckload freight is 750 million movements. 100 million move in the spot market. All right? So it gives you sort of a rough estimate of how that works. Go to the next slide, if you don't mind. This is the MDI, the Market Demand Index, annualized and seasonalized for the ups and downs in freight. You will notice something. I'll see if I don't know how well this works. I tried it before. Okay, probably can't see that. All right, so let's just go here. The last, and this data is, I think, about a week and a half old. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks. So we're at 9 weeks. We're in between 9 and 10 weeks past this. All of them were below the previous year. The red line is previous year. The blue bars are this year. They're below it. Now, we've been in a marketplace that's on Mars. It's so high. That's great. And it's going to come down really slow, but it is beginning to decline. Notice that's a decline, and if you go back to the outbound tender reject index, it's come down 20% since January. So we're seeing rates starting to move back the other way. That's a trend. 1 or 2 weeks is not a trend. 9 weeks, 10 weeks is a trend. All right, so these are the things, if you look at these every week, I promise you, you'll be as smart as Todd, and you'll be as smart as me, which is not saying a tremendous amount, but it's saying a little bit about where the market's going. And here's the thing. If you knew what was coming at you, you can always avoid it. Or you can navigate through it or around it, and you can help not lose as much as others do against rate, or gain more than others do against rate, or gain the freight that you want in that lane you want to be in. So important. If you look at this data, this is those 3 things, just those 3 small things. If you'll look at them week over week and just trend them. So it's the same thing that Todd does at his work. Just trend them. And it's so simple. You keep it on just a notebook. And I promise you, it will help you dramatically change your business, and you'll make more money year over year because you know what's coming at you. You know, maybe I don't need to make that purchase for something that for my truck that I've been wanting to purchase because the market's going to be difficult this year. It's always about knowing the future. If you could know the future, boy, I would have stepped in a whole lot less potholes when I was an idiot at about 20 years old. All right? So I wish I would have known the future. I'm not saying you're idiots. I'm just saying that was me. Okay? But if you knew the future, you can plan for your business. So if you'll go to the next slide, Mr. Curtis. Know your data. I'm going to go through this really quick. Truck stop. This is the freight out of Louisville. Go to the next slide, if you don't mind. This is Louisville freight. 480, 464. I just pulled this randomly. Go to the next one. 417, 317, all the way down. We give this little pop out that gives you all the instant information. Go to the one. There's tons of loads just out of Louisville. You're looking to get something out of here to go somewhere. This is just to anywhere. 345, 524, 477, all profitable freight. Even the fuels, I know, giving you a headache right now. Absolutely. Go to the next one. Just shows you what's going on inside of it. These are just random picks. Now these drop down lower. The yellow ones are brand new ones that come up. But you'll see these all across the board. So I just want to show you that it just keeps building and building in the marketplace. If you go to the next one. This is a pop-out that shows you an instant on this, so you can make estimations on it. If you're not a customer, this is how ours works. You can look on a load line, and you've got a rate, you've got a per mile, you've got days to pay, an evaluation. You can click for more details on the entire load. Lane density. We have a thing called lane densities. I've yet to pull one up that there's not 500 loads moving for almost every 10 trucks, so your negotiation ability is super high. You'll go to the next one. All right, and that's the end of mine. Any quick question on that, I can answer, and then want Todd to jump into his part of the presentation on advice on how to build your business on that. You can ask questions anytime, Mr. Amen. Next one's up to you.
All right. Is it better to ask you to change the slides or use that?
Does this work? Oh, yesterday I thought it didn't work. They told me, I'm so sorry. Curtis, it's been nice knowing you. So.
I liked hearing him call you Mr. Curtis so many times. I wanted to do it too because I thought it was really nice. But
it did make me feel.
But I got more slides probably. So it's Friday afternoon at the Louisville Truck Show, and they're either out of beer or the concert got canceled because you guys are sitting in this room to hear about accounting and tax and business stuff. What's wrong with you people? That's a joke. You're the smart people here because you're not in the beer line, you're not in the concert line. You're here to learn about your business and make yourselves better. And I congratulate you for that because the people that take the time to understand their business. We've been in a market where, don't take this the wrong way, but any idiot could buy a truck and make a ton of money. It's the way it's been for 2 years.
Yep.
And so the ones that make money in the good times and the bad times are the ones that learn and manage through the tougher times. Tough times are coming. Brent just alluded to it a little bit. Yep. They always do, right? There's good and there's bad. So I am going to talk to you about some boring stuff, some fixed costs, some variable costs, some net income, but don't take it the wrong way. What I really want you to understand is when the tough times come, these are the things you're going to have to pay attention to make the right decisions on those loads that Brent just showed you. So just a quick show of hands. I loved your lead-in, man. You showed some unbelievable rates up there.
Yeah.
You guys are going to be done with the truck show today, tomorrow, Sunday, and you're going to have to get out of here and drive your truck. There's some loads out of Louisville, which is good news.
Sure there is.
There's some that pay some high rates. So if you get on truckstop.com and you see a load for $5 a mile, how many of you, just raise your hand and keep it up for a minute, how many of you would take a load for $5 a mile out of Louisville? Most everybody.
Wow. Fantastic.
Keep them up for a minute for me. If that load was $4 a mile, how many of you would take that load for $4 a mile? Keep your hand up if you'd take a $4. Cool. What about $3? Would you take a $3 a mile load out of Louisville?
Look at them go down.
They're going down. You guys have gotten spoiled in the last 2 years. How many of you would take a load for $2 a mile? I don't think anybody. So if I asked
Todd, the 5-year average for freight rates,
yeah.
$2.20.
$2.20.
That's the 5-year average.
So you guys all just quit, man. You don't want.
Now that's taking these last two and not crazy years out. We averaged them without the outlier years in. So
I'm with you, right?
Yeah.
We're spoiled. I'm spoiled too. This has been a great couple of years. The trouble is it's adjusted our mindset to not become people that manage a business, but to chase revenue. And that's not just trucking, and it's not just you guys. Every business in America, when things are really good, we focus on growth, we focus on revenue, we focus on making a bunch of money, and we kind of forget about running a business. And so we're heading into a time, I don't know if it's tomorrow, next week, or even 2023, because things are a little uncertain right now, but Brent just showed you the curve is starting to top out and go down. So rates are going to change. There's not going to be 146 loads for everyone you're looking for on truckstop.com at some point in the future. So how do you think about it when that changes? And even though I'm going to talk about some kind of silly accounting terms that don't sound very fun, there are things that you're going to have to understand to make the right decisions. So let's just kind of talk through that a little bit. If you're in business, I actually got a business degree. I'm sorry for that, because sometimes people with business degrees talk about things that just sound too complex. But revenue minus expenses equals net income. That's a pretty simple fundamental truth unless you're a nonprofit organization. So that's what we're going to talk about, but we're going to get a little bit more complicated, and we're going to talk about something called contribution margin. It's important to understand contribution margin, so hopefully I'll help you understand that. Right. And taxes, man, April 15th is like, I don't know, 4 weeks away. We're in the middle of doing 20,000 tax returns, so I know that. That's why I'm happy I'm here, because I'm not in the office where everybody's really whiny because they're working 24-hour days to do tax returns. So let's talk about the revenue piece of this to start off with. You're in business for yourself. You may do different things. Some of you may lease onto a carrier. Some of you may have contracts with shippers. Some of you may get all your freight from truckstop.com. But you got to think about revenue different ways. Do you get paid a percentage of revenue if you're with a carrier? Do you get paid by the mile? Do you get paid on loading? Do you get paid a fuel surcharge? We've just been all about the revenue for the last couple of years. And as things get a little bit lower, you got to kind of understand the difference of all of those things. The cost side of the business, and I'm here to say it because it's happened in my own business. We forget about cost when we're in good times. It's all about revenue. Get to the next load, take the highest paying load, and let's just go make more money. So when you're in business for yourself, you got to think about cost in two different ways: variable costs and fixed costs. Anybody ever heard those terms or think about those terms? This is a smart audience. I may be preaching to the choir here. I feel like I got the good audience here again because you're here on Friday afternoon. For those of you that don't know what variable costs are, I think of them as things that make my truck go down the road. What do I have to do to make that truck run? I got to buy fuel. I got to maintain it. That's as simple as it is. Whatever makes my truck run down the road, that's a variable cost. If I don't run my truck, I don't have to pay those things. So contribution margin, even though it sounds a little bit scary, is a simple thing. It's the revenue in my business minus the things that make my truck run down the road, and the end of that gives me my contribution margin. Simple enough? Does that make sense to you guys? That gives us a net number. So let's put that in the real world. These are actually from our statistics last year. And understand that we do business with folks that are hauling gravel, port, drayage, over the road, dry reefer, flat, heavy haul, expedite. So this is an average of everybody. They did $1.70 per mile, which is funny because, as Brent said, we've been well over $3 a mile in the load boards. But This includes deadhead. This includes all those other things. My variable costs, my fuel, my maintenance, those are the big ones, have been 63 cents a mile. So if I take my revenue minus my variable costs, I get my contribution margin, which is $1.07. That's a really important number because I'm going to help you understand in a minute. If I said, well, I already did, how many of you would take a load for $3 a mile or under? Everybody said no. But you literally can haul a load for $1.07 at a certain point in the week, and you can make money on that load. I'm not saying go do that, and a lot of you will tell me I'm crazy, and I am, because I wouldn't haul a load for $1.07 either, but there may be a point in time in the future where you have to make a decision like that because the market's not too hot, and I got to figure out, does it make sense for me to take this load that I think pays really low? So fixed costs, there's variable costs, right? Make my truck go down the road, and then there's fixed costs. Fixed costs are things I got to pay no matter what happens with my business. If I go park my truck for the next 2 months, I still got to make a truck payment. I still got to make an insurance payment. I still got to make my cell phone bill, things like that. So fixed costs happen every single day, no matter what goes on in my life. Variable costs, fixed costs. So how do we get to net income? Again, I'm sorry for the technical accounting terms, but I just kind of want you to understand the whole concept. Revenue minus variable costs equals contribution margin. The only thing we can do to offset our fixed costs, my truck payment and my insurance, is take some of that contribution margin from running my business to make those payments. Does that make sense? I got to make contribution to contribute to pay my fixed costs. So once you get all that, the important point of knowing that, versus just revenue, expenses, net income, that's how most people think of the world. But once I understand that, I can think about a break even. And how many miles do I have to drive to just break even, to pay those fixed costs? Once you understand that in your business, you run a business for a reason. It's because you want to live a life, right? And all of us have expenses in our life. Whether we're a husband or a wife and there's somebody at home, we got to pay for things like groceries and car payments and home payments and mortgage, all that kind of stuff, right? The average owner-operator's fixed costs at home to run their house is about $100 a day, or about $700 a week. And so I need to generate enough business, enough revenue in my business to pay for that, and hopefully some more to pay for retirement and those kinds of things. So this is just kind of tying all those numbers together. We already talked about the contribution margin, $1.70 in revenue, 63 cents a mile. And I can tell you that 63 cents a mile, that was 4 weeks ago. That's 83 cents a mile now because fuel just went up 20 cents a mile, right? So my contribution margin actually just went down to 87 cents a mile because I'm not making as much because fuel just went up 20 cents if the rate's not offsetting it. I take my $1.07 contribution margin and I take my fixed costs of running a business. Again, an average from our data of 20,000 drivers is $990 every week is what a fixed cost of truck payment, insurance, those things I got to pay for no matter what. So if I take, and I know some of you are getting glassy-eyed like, man, this is crazy stuff. So don't worry about it. I'm going to make it easy for you in a minute. $990 a week in fixed costs in my business divided by $1.07 in contribution margin tells me I have to drive 925 miles a week just to break even.
That's cool.
Once I do that, I've paid all my fixed costs, and I'm good. I'm free and clear. We call it a break even because if I'm under that, I don't cover my fixed costs, and I get out a shovel and I start digging myself in a hole, and I can't make my truck payment, and I can't make my insurance payment, and I go out of business. It's going to happen. There's been 110,000 new FMCSA authorities issued in the last year. Those are all brand new people running a trucking business. They've never been through a downturn. Those people that aren't paying attention to things like this, when the downturn comes, some of them are going to go out of business because they're not going to know how to make good decisions. So we also said we got to take care of the home, right? So the average, we said the average home bill is $700 a week. So if we take $700 on top of our fixed costs, divided by $1.07, we have to run 1,579 miles a week to break even and pay for our home costs. Make sense? Every one of you in here is different, so you got different numbers, but you can do these calculations for yourself.
So Todd, are you saying the fact that I have 6 children at home, my costs might be more?
I'm saying you got to run 4,000 miles a week to pay for to pay for your fixed costs at home. Yeah, your expenses are up a little higher, right?
Right. Okay.
I mean, it's amazing because we got drivers who have a 600 miles a week to break even. We got drivers that have to run 2,400 miles a week to break even. Everybody's different.
I think that's a super important thing to point out. I'm so glad that you do talk about that because knowing where you need to break even, everything over that should be money that you can build your business with, play with, go on vacation with. That seems to be one of the most intelligent things you can do to run your business is understand where your break even is.
It really is. And if you do that, that's why I said nobody in here would haul a load for $1.07. But if I've hit my break even and I've covered my fixed costs, I mean, we're going to talk about it in another slide or two. I actually could haul a load for $1.07 and I could make money at $1.07. That's crazy to think about, but I've already paid my truck payment.
Contribution margin.
Yeah,
Okay.
but once I broke even, contribution margin is money in my pocket. Every dollar I make, once I've covered my fixed costs, my truck payment, my insurance, you know, so it's daunting at the beginning of the week. I got to make a lot of money to make my truck payment, my insurance, pay for fuel, pay for maintenance. So I just got to go get a bunch of money, and that's how most people think, right? But if I really think about it like a business person, and I got a good load on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, and I generated good revenue, and I know my break even, you know, was covered at 1,500 miles, everything I run over that is money in my pocket because I don't have to make my truck payment anymore. I already did it. And intuitively, you guys kind of know this stuff instinctually because you grew up in the business, but a lot of you don't think of it this way. And again, I'm going to say a lot of drivers will lay over. And let's just talk about that. We'll get to that in just a minute. So in one sense, I said I'm going to make this easy for you. You know, at ATBS, we're in the business of trying to take complicated things like this and help drivers make better business decisions. So when you sign up with ATBS, we do something we call a profit plan. It really secretly is a budget, but doing a budget sounds like getting a root canal, and so we don't like to call it a budget because it just sounds like no fun. A profit plan actually sounds a little bit more exciting. I can go out and make a profit. And so we'll spend half hour to an hour with you on the phone, and we'll actually go through your numbers, and we'll do a profit plan. And out of that, it automatically tells you your contribution margin and your break even, so you don't have to do a bunch of this crazy math on your own if you don't want to. Right. So we're going to talk about some simple truths because that stuff was kind of overwhelming and complicated. If nothing else, and for most of you, this is what you've done the last 2 years, focus on generating the highest possible gross revenue per day. That includes pay per mile, percentage pay, unloading pay, stop and transit pay, However you get paid, just focus on the highest pay per day. But you can't just say today's Friday and I need to think about the highest revenue per day today, because that could lead to very low revenue tomorrow if you make the wrong move. You got to think about it over the last few days and the next forward days, so average it out. Am I putting myself in a market that's not good and I'm going to get some terrible revenue coming out of there? Focus on revenue, and the highest revenue per day is super important. So one thing I'm here to tell you is you got to start changing your mindset right now, because the tougher times are coming. We've all been about the revenue. It's been great. But as we just talked about, when I generate $1 of revenue, only a certain amount of that, only contribution margin, goes in my pocket after my fixed costs. So I've got to work to make that. If I save $1 doing anything I do today, if I save $1 on fuel because I got a good discounted fuel network, or I slow down and I get a little better fuel economy, or I idle less and I get better fuel economy, every dollar I save, 100% goes into my pocket. And so this is a time when things get a little bit tougher, where you got to think about the cost side of the business, not just the revenue side of the business. I like to talk about freight cycles because it's important to understand them in your business. Truckstop.com has a huge amount of data, and they'll help you understand the freight cycles if you start studying and understanding their data.
Yeah.
Traditionally, you could say January is a terrible month. We just got through the holidays and people take time off and things slow down. Fleets I've been out talking to for the last 4 weeks say they had the best January in the history of their company. Yeah. So I would say COVID has turned the world upside down, and it's really hard to predict freight cycles right now. You also have this crazy thing. It used to be third quarter was a great quarter because we were moving all the Christmas freight into the stores and everything else. Now everybody buys everything online, and stuff starts getting returned. And so freight actually is pretty good in the first quarter. If you're in the reefer business, second quarter used to be really good because you were shipping everything. And so I guess all I'm saying is that life's gotten really confusing because of COVID, because shipping patterns have changed. But you need to know these things as owner-operators, and the best place you can figure out freight cycles is by watching data on places like truckstop.com. You can see ahead, like Brent just showed you. So I talked about, and I hear
Todd,
this.
real quick, I want to make just a quick point. I noticed a lot of you guys are taking pictures, and you're welcome to do that. If you'll give me your information afterwards, I'll send you the presentation. All right, so you can have it yourself. So you're good with me sending yours?
Absolutely.
Okay, so yeah, so
You
look,
betcha.
that's why we're here. All right, so take all the pictures you want. Thank you, sir. Take all the pictures you want, especially of Todd and I, because we really like the way we look. So, but I'm happy to send it to you so you can actually use it, you know, for something else. So happy to do that.
Right on. You betcha.
Yep. Oh, absolutely.
So we talked about this a little bit, but let's just say we're in Louisville, and for some reason the world went crazy today, and all those $4 and $5 loads that Brent showed go down to $2.50 a mile. None of you are going to take them because you're like, hell no, I'm not hauling for that cheap freight. That's ridiculous. So what happens if you sit here until you get a $3.50 per mile load? You guys know this, but your fixed costs build up, right? I got to pay $140 every day for my truck, my insurance. I got to cover the home, so I get up to $240 a day. So I start digging myself, because I haven't hit my break even, I start digging myself in that hole, and all of a sudden, I got to run more miles, and I actually need a $3.85 load, because if I sit here for 2 days, I'm digging fixed costs in the hole. Hopefully that makes sense. And again, I'm not trying to talk you into taking cheap freight. I'm just trying to help you into understanding your business rather than always looking for the highest, best paying load, because it just depends on your circumstance, and it depends where you're at on the week. It depends on your contribution margin and those kinds of things. So again, I know that was kind of complicated, but if you really think about it, you, at the very minimum, need to know kind of what your average revenue per mile is. You need to know what your variable costs are, and then you can figure out that contribution margin. If I've already covered those fixed costs, maybe I can haul a load for $2.50 a mile, because it's going to get me into a market that's going to give me $4.50 per mile load. You hear head haul, you hear back haul markets and all those kinds of things, but every one of you is different. You have different needs. You may need to get home. You may need to get to a different place to have work done on your truck. And so somebody may need a $4 load to get out of Louisville. That's the only thing that makes sense to them. But there's people here that can take a $2 load to get out of Louisville because they've already covered their fixed costs. They had a great week. They made a bunch of money, and they're still going to put money in their pocket. Again,
That's a different mentality, Todd.
It is.
Really, it's a totally different mentality, and I get it.
I'm saying we're going to have to have it. If you're going to survive, if
Yeah.
you're one of the 110,000 that just got your authority and you're going to survive the next downturn, you got to shift your mind to start thinking this way, because the people that don't, We've
Right.
seen it for 25 years. They're going to go broke because they're
Right.
just going to say, where'd that $3 a mile freight go? I'm not hauling that cheap crap. You know?
Before you jump into taxes, I did show that last slide, and we're on a decline. We're still at a super high marketplace, no doubt, higher than we've ever had, by the way, in the history of trucking. All right, sustained. It is going to decline slowly this year. This is still going to be a good year to move freight in spite of the fuel challenges that we're having, okay? So it's still going to be a good year to move freight. So if you were talking about preparing yourself for the future, being able to create more revenue in a season where, as opposed to a season that might be coming at you that you're going to inherently create less revenue because the rates are going to be lower, is a good season to work as hard as you can in, or as smart as you can in, because we're going to have another good year. Last year was a fantastic year. Looking at declines from when the rates have been in another planet, you know, that's going to be a very slow decline back. All right, so granted, there's all kinds of things geopolitically going on. The geopolitical situation doesn't affect us tremendously. At least that's what my economist tells me. And so, but just know that this year's going to be a good year. So this year is a good year to think about what you're going to do in 2023, not just over the next couple of months. Because if you start looking at planning at that today, and I love that, I hadn't really thought about the fixed cost thing, and everything else is a profit on top of that, as long as you cover the variable costs. So, or anyway, I'll get that right in a minute.
It's hard.
Yeah, it is, but so that's a unique way to look at it. And if you do that, wow, that's remarkable how much more profit you can make throughout the annual year.
Yeah, and what's really happened for the last, I mean, the meeting before this, they asked to raise hands. How many of you ran less miles this year than the last year? And every single hand in the room. And we know it from our data. The average owner-operator last year ran 92,000 miles. They ran 101,000 miles the year before. Everybody worked less because they made more money, bottom line. And that's awesome. They could be choosy on their freight. Right. They could take that high-paying freight. You're going to get to a time where you're going to have to drive more miles, and you're going to have to run some of those lower-paying loads. But that's what you do to stay in business, right? Through the ups and the downs. You maximize your net income when things are good, and enough of that. So, because I'm in the tax business, we have the largest tax department in the U.S. that does taxes for owner-operators. We get to talk directly to the IRS. I thought I'd just throw some things out at you to make sure that you question your tax preparer to make sure you're getting things done the right way. At ATBS, we don't want our clients to be CPAs or even really worry about what's deductible. We just want them to send us the information, we'll help them figure it out. So the easiest way to think about what's deductible in my business as an owner-operator is it necessary and deductible for my business? That's it. If I go to Walmart and I buy a whole shopping basket worth of stuff, there's things in there that I need for my business. Maybe Windex, maybe paper towels, you know, whatever it is, that's tax deductible. The IRS only requires that you have documentation, date, time, amount purchased. Simple things, obviously, are truck, fuel, maintenance, insurance, all this stuff like that, but then there's some stuff that gets a little bit questionable. The home office deduction has always been kind of fuzzy, and I get to talk on satellite, Sirius XM radio, and do tax calls, and people always call in and ask these crazy questions. And we used to be kind of against the home office deduction like 10 years ago. It was kind of a red flag for the IRS. People were trying to cheat the IRS. But they made it really simple a little while back. And so if you have a space in your house and you just manage your business there up to 300 square feet, you can't have a bed in there, you have to use that space just for your business, up to $300 square feet, the IRS allows you to deduct $5 a foot, so it's a $1,500 tax deduction. If the IRS ever audits you and they walk in and they see that bedroom with a desk in it, they will not question it. If there's a bedroom and bunk beds and toys all over, they'll be like, yeah, that's not a home office. That's just one example. Guard dog deduction. It's hilarious because I love the truck show, man. I saw a Great Dane walking around the truck show, and I saw a, what do you call those little teeny dogs like that?
Or Yorkshire Terrier?
Yorkshire Terrier. I saw twins in a stroller. And I think about those too. And you think the Great Dane, is that a guard dog? Yeah, I'm probably not going to break into a truck where I see a Great Dane. That's a little scary. If I see that Yorkshire Terrier in there, am I going to break into that truck? Probably not, because that thing barks like crazy because it's a little yapper. For me, that's an alarm. So we will take a guard dog deduction for our clients because it's keeping your truck safe. So I throw some of those things out there like work boots and sunglasses. We're not out to cheat the IRS because they'll get you if you do. We don't need to screw the IRS. We just need to take the maximum legal deductions that you can. So just trying to give you a few ideas to make sure your tax preparer is doing the right thing for you. Per diem, I literally have been on the radio and I could do a full day show on per diem with call-in questions because it's the most confusing thing that was ever invented. So I'm going to make it really simple for you. If you're an owner-operator and you're away from home for 24 hours, you can take a per diem deduction. Company drivers, I'm sorry to tell you that per diem's been outlawed. With the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act under Donald Trump, 2018, no more company driver per diem. But for an owner-operator, you can take a per diem deduction for every day you're away from home. It got increased last year from $66 a day to $69 a day on October 1st. So you can take $69 deduction for every day you're away from home. This is where it gets really confusing. It used to be you can only take 80% of that $69. So you had to do a bunch of math and formulas, but the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act wanted to get people back in restaurants. And so what they said is you can deduct 100% of meal deductions. And what they meant that for was the businessman's lunch, the 3-martini lunch that you used to hear about. They wanted people to go back into restaurants, and it was really cloudy what happened. What that meant for per diem for truck drivers, everybody thought it was still 80%. Again, we worked with the IRS and the person that actually wrote this law, and finally got clarified at the very end of last year. You can now deduct 100% of your per diem for the next 2 years. This goes through this year. So it's a great deduction. It can be up to $20,000 if you run, 250 days a year away from home. Again, so many tax people screw this up because they don't know there's a very specific deduction for independent contractors. They treat you like everybody else in the world, and they do the deduction incorrectly. Last thing I'm going to talk about is most people we do business with are sole proprietors, which makes complete sense. They don't incorporate. There's a lot of reasons to not incorporate from an accounting and tax perspective because it's complicated and it adds cost to the business. But people made a lot of money in the last year. And for us, the break even is about $70,000. If I make under $70,000 in net income, it makes sense to do a Schedule C, which is on the left of this slide, and just be a sole proprietor and do my taxes that way. If I make over $70,000, I can play a tax game, and it's not cheating the IRS. It's very legitimate. Again, numbers that we get directly from the IRS. Without going too deep, just to explain the numbers to you, essentially what you're doing is you're creating a company and you're becoming an employee of your company. When you do that, you pay yourself a wage. And what happens is you pay yourself a lower wage than you make net in your business. So you only have to pay self-employment tax on the wage you pay yourself. So when I become sorry for that feed, maybe Brent and I are too close. So when I become an employee of my company, I pay myself a reasonable wage in the IRS's eyes. We'll talk to you and help you figure that out. But let's just say it's $40,000. Again, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through all the numbers, but at the end of the day, I can save about $4,600 in taxes by becoming an employee of my S-Corp and paying myself a reasonable wage. It's going to cost more to do that because I have to do a legitimate payroll. I got to pay myself on a weekly basis. I got to do withholdings, and I got to pay a more complicated tax return. I now have to do an S-Corp return plus a personal return. That's all stuff we do, but at the end of the day, that's going to cost you about $1,500 to do that. So you can save $4,500 in taxes, cost you about $1,500. Net savings to the good is about $3,000. So I bring that up. I don't often talk about it, but our average owner-operator made more than $70,000 last year. If you made 6 figures, 100 grand, we have owner-operators that made $150,000, $225,000. This makes all the sense in the world. You can literally save $10,000, $15,000 in self-employment taxes. So
you would say for team drivers, you definitely. Can you do that on team drivers?
You can do it on team drivers, but it boils again down to the net income because you're going to divide that net income for that team.
Okay,
so for a team, you got to be making more than $140,000.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. It's more complicated. It makes the business more difficult. But hey, I'm all about paying the IRS less money. So
that's right.
Sorry again. I hit you with a bunch of stuff on Friday afternoon that sounded kind of complicated and accounting, but hopefully gave you some good ideas.
Hey Todd, one thing, and did you mention what you did before ATBS?
No.
Do you mind mentioning what you did before?
Not at all. I grew up in a trucking family.
Go ahead, sorry.
I grew up in a trucking family. My dad made me start working in the shop when I say made, because, God, I didn't want to work in the shop when I was 12 years old and all my buddies were at the swimming pool. But, I grew up in that business with 2 brothers, and we took over our dad's truck line, and we ran it about 600 trucks for 5 or 6 years ourselves. The piece of why we do what we do today is we had 300 owner-operators that worked for us, and it broke my heart every single one of the time one of those guys went out of business because they didn't understand the business. They made good money, but we had hard times, and they'd go out of business. And I tried to find somebody that could help those owner-operators do their accounting, do their tax, understand their business, and there was nobody in America that helped owner-operators do that. There was no Google, this or that. back in the 1990s, it was hard to get information. We sold our truck line, and at the end of the day, you know, my heart is with the drivers I grew up with my whole life, wanting them to be better in their business. And so I started a company where we could help independent contractors be more successful. And I love it every second of the day. It's so much
If you want
fun.
to know why Truck Stop is partnered with ATBS, it's because they have the same heartbeat that we do. We want to see you be as successful as possible. Because this is super important to understand. So what Todd's talking about is the nuts and bolts of things, how you structure something together. You are in a standard supply and demand market. All right? And there's less supply of trucks and there's more demand. Your rates are going to be high, and it's going to be, as they said in Raising Arizona, salad days. All right? When there's less demand for freight and there's still the same amount of trucks. By the way, when I started in 1998 in this market, there were 3.5 million trucks in the marketplace. Guess how many there are today? 3.5 million. It has not changed any in 20-something years. So that as that demand moves, the rates will go up, but it's a standard supply and demand. You need to know that, all right? The brokers you deal with have to deal with the same things, the standard supply and demand marketplace. When you know thy data, as Chuck Heston has holding on to the 10 Commandments there, when you know your data, you see it before everybody else does. The truck stop data, we report to the FMCSA, we report to Wall Street, we are partnered with Bloomberg, if you guys know who that is. Bloomberg is the big provider of all these terminals that sit in over 300,000 business offices around the world where they're looking at the stock market all day long. Our data goes to Bloomberg every Monday morning and is on the BloombergTruckstop.com freight data report, because the spot market freight is one of the leading indicators to the U.S. economy, which is one of the leading indicators, if not the leading indicator, to the global economy. That's how important the marketplace you work in is to the global economy. If you can see the data in the market, these guys on Wall Street aren't dumb, okay? They love to analyze things, and boy, they bore me to death most of the time. But they know how to look at things that are coming at them, because that's how they make money, all right? Same thing for you, all right? So it's the same thing. So if you can look at this data, plan your business accordingly, my goodness, you get to enjoy driving your truck so much more. We've got like 6 or 7 minutes, which is really good. We'd love to answer any question, and it doesn't matter what it is. We'll be happy to answer. If you want to talk about how our technology works, or so you want to complain about it, how do we need to correct something, you want to talk about how cool Todd is, either one. We'll answer any question. Who's got a question? Come on, we got to have a question. Okay, we got one of, Craig, you mind? Yes, ma'am, just 1 second. I want to hear everybody hear your question. Ma'am, what's your name and what's your question?
Hi, my name is Valerie. My
Hey,
question
Valerie.
is for Todd. Okay, so you would say S Corporation is better than LLC?
Did you
what's
say
the
S
question?
versus C corporation? Yeah, so I would tell you, never be a C corporation. And my never is for most everybody. A C corporation is for thousands of shareholders, and it's a complicated taxing structure where the corporation gets taxed, and if you pay dividends out of the corporation, those also get taxed, so you get double taxed. That's the most common reason to say don't ever be a C Corp unless you're going to be a publicly held company someday. So yeah, LLC is a simple company you can set up legally, and then you can elect to be taxed as an S Corp. That's the best structure if you want to do be an employee of my business deal, is set up an LLC, become an S Corp as far as taxation. No C ever. Yeah.
Yes, rock and roll. What's your name and what's your question?
My name's Jason, and
Hey, Jason.
on the S Corp. I'm just a small owner operator. I don't drive a lot of miles. I just do it as a part-time job.
Okay.
Could you kind of figure out what you're going to pay yourself in 52 weeks, write one check, and take all the holdings out and make the government happy and still be an S Corp?
You
Instead
can.
of just doing it every week.
Yeah, you
I
can.
can figure out what my withholding is going to be for the year and just still call myself an S Corp.
Yeah, if you have a pretty standard business and it's pretty consistent year over year, you could do that. It's not normal, but you know, when the IRS says, hey, we want to check out your
There are
business.
requirements, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, most people pay themselves every week a paycheck, so as long as you're not doing that and then you're taking a bunch of distributions, you know, every other week out of your S Corp to live on, they're going to say you're not paying yourself enough money. You're actually trying to cheat us, and then you're taking the money out of your company and not pay taxes. So as long as you're not taking a bunch of distributions, yeah, you could do it that way. Yeah, gotcha.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yep, great. All right.
And easy.
Yes, sir. What's your name and what's your question?
My name is Tom. The question I
Tom.
have relates to the average miles driven per year. You mentioned that for 2020 it was like 101,000, and 2021 it was 92,000. How much of that was because of drivers being more selective with higher rates, and how much was forced on them because of inefficiencies in the supply chain or just disruptions with customers not unloading trucks efficiently and all that, the other things that come into play here?
That's a really good question, and I would say 80% of it is by choice because I can make more money, so I don't need to run those miles, because we've seen that trend through 3 recessions now. Drivers drive 5 to 8% less during good times, but I also do know the one time that didn't happen was at the back half of 2020. Drivers actually, rates were great. We came out of COVID. We didn't come out of COVID. We came out of the freak out of COVID in the second quarter, and the third and fourth quarter got really good. But drivers kept running more miles, and I've come to realize a big piece of that reason was because all the rest of us were at home, and there was no traffic on the road, and so I could just hammer down.
That's right.
So part of it is congestion. The world came out of hibernation, and now you guys are stuck in traffic and all that kind of stuff like it used to be. So those two, I'd say 80% work less because we make more money, 20% because the roads suck again.
That's a great question. Thank you. I ask, since I found out the data from one of the ATBS presentations in a meeting I was in Las Vegas earlier this week. I've been asking owner operators the same question across the board. Everyone's like, oh yeah, I'm driving less. I mean, I want to enjoy my life a little more. So I've seen the same thing anecdotally as I've asked across the board. Next question.
Hey, Brent, real quick before you,
Yes.
because it's going to end quickly. When you're done, if you want to get a copy of the presentation, there's
Oh yeah,
one
in the
raise
back,
your
if
hand.
Kendall and Jonathan
collect your
see
information
anybody
together.
in a red shirt, give us your business card, or we'll write down your email address. Promise that we'll send it to you, no problem at all. Just make sure anybody in a truck stop shirt or the red truck stop shirts back there, or yeah, with a microphone. So all right, next question. Come on. We got what? Jason's got another question. Is anybody surprised? All right, Jason, come on.
This is
Now
more.
you
from
just run a part-time business, Jason. Come on.
I know it.
All right, sure you do.
Now, this is kind of from yesterday. You said there were 750 million loads,
Yes, sir.
and we're only fighting over 100 million in the spot market.
Now, okay, so I can, you may explain it. Finish your question. That's the question?
No, just how soon should we start going back to try to get to that 650? Are we getting closer?
650.
Or
Oh, are you talking about-
650 million
well,
loads
okay,
that are contract rate?
All right, I'll try to give you the the shorter version. That 100 million is like pure spot market freight, okay? So but the entire truckload freight marketplace is connected because, so truckstop.com does business with 10,000 brokers, right? 5,000 of those are pure brokerage plays, they have no trucks whatsoever. 5,000 of those are brokerage arms or brokerage parts of a really large asset-based carrier or a medium-sized asset-based carrier. So what they have is when they get overage freight from all their shippers that they do business with, they move it through their brokerage company because they can continue to move it because there's spot market trucks out there that they have access to. All right, but so all of the contract market and the spot market is there's crossover. So it's not a direct line that it's, oh, this is spot, it's never going to work. It's all just freight. It depends on where it's moved. All right, so when it goes in the spot, it just means it has dynamic pricing, so you can't really, you have to look at that day's pricing on things. But contract freight, there's lots of brokers that move a tremendous amount of contract freight. That's why that number of 44% continues to go up and up. That's of the total marketplace, of that 750 million. Does that make sense? So I know I could probably, sir? Of the total market, right. So that was 15% of the total truckload marketplace, and it continues to climb because brokers are getting really good at what they're doing, and you're getting better at what you're doing, and it's become a more legitimate marketplace because technology is allowing you to report back to the shipper, and they're much more comfortable with the visibility into their freight moving. A shipper wants to know where their freight is, period. It's mandate, but it's not always that way in the owner-operator spot market. You guys don't want to be tracked, and I can understand. But if you want to get the great shipper freight that a broker has, or even you want to deal direct with a shipper, they want visibility into you moving their very valuable goods. Not that they want to track you, they just want to know where their stuff is because who they answer to asks the same question. Hey, when's that stuff going to get there? So same sort of thing. So I wouldn't be worried about chasing parts of the market. Just know that the spot marketplace is going to continue to grow because the main people that are bringing freight to that marketplace, the brokerage companies, are continuing to grow in their freight that they're getting to move. Does that make sense? I hope so. If not, see me afterwards. I'd be happy to go a little further. Yes, sir.
If they're as worried as you're saying of knowing where their freight is, why are they not putting their own tracker on their own freight?
Expense? I don't know. I mean, yeah, you're talking about a
Well,
shipper?
you were the one that said that.
Yes, sir. Well, I understand.
So, I mean, those trackers, I mean, I work in the pipeline industry.
Okay.
They have sorry about that.
Yeah.
They have equipment that's back in the 70s, and they
Sure.
put trackers on them
Right.
because it's economical,
Sure, could be.
you know,
Yeah.
and if it was that important to them,
Right,
I just don't see why they don't put their own tracker on.
right. But I wouldn't know how
To
to
me,
answer.
I question that it's that important, because I got a brother-in-law that pulls van freight,
Okay.
and he puts the tracker on, and then they call him at 6 o'clock in the morning instead of looking at the tracker.
Oh, well, they're
So-
overdoing it a bit. I understand. Yeah, I wouldn't know. But normally, if you've got a systematic way of doing it, that's much less cost in doing it because they don't want to add. The shipper obviously does not ask you to add cost to it. That's just the part of the process to ship the freight. They want to see where it is. So, but I understand your point. Yes, sir. Any other questions? Yes, sir. In the back. No, sir. It's hard. It's a little hard for us to hear you up here when that happens.
Okay, sorry.
All
My
right.
name is Milan. I
Hey,
wanted
Milan.
to ask you, so these shipping rates, which are obviously good for everyone sitting in this room, but do you think they contributed to inflation?
Absolutely.
Since obviously drivers are making more money, but people are paying a lot more for
Yeah.
goods in general.
Yeah, so the ketchup and mustard and hamburgers and meat that I buy from the store costs more money because it's costing more things to get there. Consumer prices are going to go up. Inflation is going to go up. So we really, as much as this market has been great for you guys, and I'm all for that, we need to return to some type of a normality or what I like to call stability. And I don't think it's going to be back at that $2.20 mark, at the $2.20 a mile mark. I think it'll be higher than that because inflation is driving the cost up just in general. And then we move things forward in our country anyways. But absolutely, it's a reflection of it and it contributes to it. Absolutely. Yep. And inflation is not good for any of us. Look, like I said, I got 6 kids. It costs me more to buy the stuff. That's not good. My money that I earn doesn't go as far, So, and I got 4 daughters too, by the way. So, there's a lot of other things to pay for.
Your fault, right? You're
No,
not the
yeah,
one that
no.
made rates go up to where they are.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dynamics, so yeah,
there is. Yeah, it's not
inflation,
true.
it's bad.
Yeah, correct. It's a good question though. A lot of people ask me the inflation question. Any other questions? We're kind of over. We probably need to give the room back. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Really appreciate Todd, my partner, being up here. Thank you for being here. We'll be out in the hall if you want to ask any other questions. And give your information to the red shirt guys so we can get the presentation to you. It was an honor to sit with you. Thank you so much.